Being envious of people or wanting to take things that don't belong to you can sometimes end in the most horrific end results. There's a story that I heard about a man who was living in the West, in the United States, with his wife and children, and had come into money. And so he decided to go to his home country and start making investments there. So he bought 2 separate plots of land and built 2 houses on it. Started a business as well so that he could also have his foot in the door financially in his home country, as he did in the States. His wife and children live in the States with him, and they would periodically go on holidays. Whilst these projects was going on, the man would go home periodically to tend to his projects and make sure everything was doing good. After he finished one of the houses, he put his nephew in the house with him, and this is the house that he would typically go to when he goes on his visits to his home country. And he also bought a car for his nephew, which would run the errands. So whenever he got to Ghana, his nephew would go wherever he needed to go with him, run all the errands, drive him around. So it was just the 2 of them. They'll have a fabulous time, and then he would leave. The second house he put up specifically for his wife and children when they visited, and so that house was left empty. On one of his visits, he had assured his nephew that apart from everything he's done, put him in his house with him, give him this car that he uses to run around and everything, he will also had intentions of supporting the nephew with a viable business so that he also has a means of living and everything, and was supporting him financially on a regular basis. But when the nephew heard this, he felt entitled. He felt that the uncle was under some kind of obligation to give him what he wanted or to support him, and that support has to come right now. So on the uncle's next visit, was going to do some work on the house that was going to be for his wife and children. And he had talked extensively to his nephew about this. They had gone on the fateful day, the previous day to that, to go and get funds from the bank that he was going to use the next morning to begin the project at the house. The nephew was filled with so much anger and frustration that armed robbers came and attacked them at night. On the face of it, armed robbers attacked the whole house. And so the nephew was also left injured with bruises and cuts and bleeding and tied and all of that. But the uncle was amazed that the armed robbers entered the house, got into his room, and midway straight away, where the only other person who knew where the funds had been put was the nephew. But the armed robbers were able to go straight to the money and take the money. He identified one of the people by their facial expressions and mannerisms. And even though they had a mask on, he was able to identify them. And the person pulled the trigger and shot him, and he lost his life. There was an investigation that ensued after that, and the chief inspector that had been put on the case just didn't understand how the whole thing had happened and was dead on investigating till the culprits were caught. The people who robbed the house were actually people that lived in the vicinity of the house, and so it didn't take very long for these people, the culprits, to be arrested. When they were interrogated and questioned intensely, it was revealed that the real brain behind the robbery was the man's nephew. All that tying him up and the bruises and cuts, and those were all part of the plan to disguise the whole situation and not make it look like he was a suspect from the outset. So this whole time, whilst the investigation was going on, the nephew was seeking treatment. He was going to the hospital. His wounds were being dressed and stitched and all of that. So he had a lot of public sympathy. The uncle had been buried, the funeral was done, years had gone by, and eventually when they caught him, he was jailed for a period of 5 years with hard labor, and by the time of his arrest, he was about 29 years old. He stayed in for 5 years, which makes his release around the 34, 35 mark. Soon after he got released, though, he got really unwell and also lost his life. So all this money that he thought he was smart enough to take from his uncle, all the assets that he thought he was going to be able to keep to himself, that house that the uncle had put him in and all of that, he himself did not live long enough to be able to enjoy the thing that he took forcibly that didn't belong to him in the first place. Nature has a way of dishing out justice to people when they do wrong. And the blood of some people always speaks even beyond the tombs of the graves. There's so much envy, there's so much jealousy, there's so much hurt, anguish, feelings of entitlement and wanting to take things that do not belong to you in the first place. Thus reapeth what thou sowest. You will reap a heavy, bountiful reward for the things that you do on the surface of this planet. And so my advice to a lot of people who are watching and listening to me this morning is that never envy anybody's hard earnings. You don't know the sacrifices that have gone into putting or getting the people where they need to be. If you want to know how they've done it, so that maybe you can replicate that and maybe have some successes of your own in your own life, instead of envying, wanting to bring harm the people's way, you actually want to befriend them, get close to them, get to know them better, and ask them to teach you exactly what it is that they did in order to have the successes that they did. And any good person will teach you that, rather than trying to cut people's life short and take things from them that never belonged to you in the first place. If you do that, you reap a bountiful reward for the evil and the wickedness that perpetrates because of you. If this video has made any sense to you, if it's a sound of caution to you, or for other people, especially the young generation that want everything, microwave people that want everything at a fast pace, we want it now, we want it immediately because you're feeling entitled, this is advice for you. If you want to have access to more of this content, or even want to be able to speak on a one-to-one basis with me about how you can let your life go to that next level of your destiny, I'm a personal development coach. You can contact me, www.sikaeducate.com. Book yourself a session. Come, let's sit down and let's draw a roadmap that's going to help you get where you need to be. Tap Send is a viable app that we're all using to send remittances from the diaspora to our loved ones abroad. Use it as your first transaction only, the promo code AKUSIKA, and you will get extra bonuses on that first transaction after you've downloaded the app from Google or Apple Play Store. AKUSIKA. It's $15 extra if you live in Canada and the States. It's €5 if you live in Europe, and an extra £5 if you live in the United Kingdom. It's a no-brainer. United Kingdom, it's a no-brainer, and it doesn't get better than this. Use the app. Fabulous rates of sending funds to your loved ones. You will never look back and regret that you did this. I love you so much. Have a fantastic day, and please share this video. Bye.